Hello, friends, family, fellow patriots. Lord Stompy here. Welcome. So, guys, this is the video that I'm currently required to make. Kanye, the man of the year, whether we like it or not. I kind of have no choice but to make this video at this point in time. The fact is, Kanye's grabbing himself huge amounts of attention for very obvious reasons, and everybody's talking about him, of course, and my own viewers are asking me my personal opinions on Kanye. Is he a psyop? Can we trust him because he's a black guy? Do you think he's useful to the white nationalist cause, considering that he's calling out Zog and basically causing a lot of havoc for the Jewish power base? So, I better answer these questions for you all, or you're going to keep asking me these questions, and I think they do deserve an answer, actually. Kanye, at this point in time, is a force of nature that we cannot ignore. So, first of all, let me say straight up, it doesn't particularly worry me in any way whatsoever what Kanye does, whether he's a psyop or not, or whether all this is genuine. And there's a reason for this. It's because I'm not particularly emotionally or intellectually invested in people and subjects that aren't directly important to me. For me to be really invested in a subject or a person at this point in time, it has to be some key personal subject to do with European nationalism, or due to the fact I'm a musician, it has to be something about music that I'm particularly interested in. So I'm getting old, and I'm realizing that my attention is very important to me. I have less time upon this planet because of my age, and I don't have time to spend focusing my attention on things that aren't particularly my business. Now, there's a second part of the reason why people like Kanye, it doesn't matter particularly what they're trying to do, because even if he is a psyop, my views on European nationalism and life in general, the foundations of my views are fairly rigid. They're fairly sound these days. So even if Kanye is trying to pull off some convoluted psyop where he's trying to lead European nationalists astray, that's not going to work on a guy like me, because my beliefs and my foundations in life are non-negotiable. Right? So you can try to pull off a really clever, cunning stunt, and I'm not going to allow the fundamental beliefs and the fundamental structure of my life to be altered, no matter what. So, I mean, this is a whole subject in itself, but I'm just going to say, for the sake of all my European nationalist buddies, right? Your beliefs and your attention are the most powerful things you have, right? Your attention, like what you're focusing on, and your beliefs, right? They're uniquely yours, and you've got to make sure that your intentions and that your beliefs are well guarded, right? So, to a large degree, these days, it doesn't matter whether people like Kanye and Alex Jones and all these other clowns whether they're pulling off psyops or not, because I don't buy into anything that they're trying to sell, and I don't pay them very much attention at all. There's a lot of people who watch my channel who sit in the comments section spurging out all the time that this is a psyop and that's a psyop and blah de blah. And it's, yeah, I mean, to some degree it's important to know whether people or groups are on our side or not. But at the same time, if a person or a group is a psyop and then you're just spurging out endlessly over them, say for instance you're just spurging out endlessly that Alex Jones is a psyop, or in that case the Alex Jones psyop is still having some of its desired effect upon your life, because you're donating huge amounts of your emotional energy and your attention focusing on the Alex Jones psyop. And at the end of the day, all psyops, nearly all psyops, one of the main things that they're trying to do is waste your time and attention. And even if you notice they're a psyop but then you just sit there getting emotional and focusing on it, that means the psyop is still working. So there's a piece of sage advice to you as a European nationalist on what you should be focusing at this point in time now on positive steps that we can take as European nationalists to secure a future for our people and our children. So now that I've got that out the way, here comes the thrust of my video here. This is my analysis of Kanye. I'm going to present it basically in a fashion that's fairly devoid of positive or negative weight, because there are some very, very interesting and important things that Kanye has brought to light, and we should look at those things and study them. So what Kanye has done in the last year or two is suddenly he's transformed himself from out of nowhere, from being a mainstream pop artist, to suddenly, with no warning at all, he has turned his entire life into an endless far-right shit-posting meme. And this is actually quite amusing, and this is no small feat, right? He's done something very important here, right? Now, if somebody told you, as a white nationalist, if somebody told you 3 or 4 years ago that one of the biggest political and social forces of the far right was in the very near future was going to be a black hip-hop star, white nationalists would have said no, there's no way that could happen, but it's happening, right? So this is a fairly important thing. We have to recognize that just this as a thing in itself is some very strange Rubicon has been crossed here. So what Kanye's shitposting is doing is it's also very unique in that he's being completely merciless and very, very universal with his far-right shitposting, and he's really good at it, right? I never saw a hint of any of this from Kanye, as I didn't even really know who he was, to be honest, until he suddenly turned himself into into the nigger Nazi. Um, I'll, I'll give him some props for that. Overnight transformation from black pop star to nigger Nazi. That's yeah, good on you, Kanye. That is pretty funny. So what Kanye's shit posting has been doing is he's managed to upset huge segments of the pro-black community, the pro-white community, as well as the fact he's pissed off pretty much every liberal and Jew on the planet. So as I said, his shit posting is completely merciless, and it's universal. Like he's basically become a nihilistic far right shit posting machine. That's really funny to me. It's just the phenomenon itself is like, well, all right, we've got the most ruthless far right shit posting machine on the planet, and it's a black hip hop star, and he's pissed at basically everyone off. It's huge amounts of his old fan base are now against him. It's a very large minority of white nationalists are now kind of for him, which is, I never thought I'd see the day where white nationalists, large numbers of them, were all cheering on a black hip hop star. Now, once again, I could mention here this could be part of some psyop, but for me personally, that just doesn't matter. Maybe Kanye does have some grand psyop plan to lead white nationalists astray with his act that he's putting on, but that kind of thing's not going to work on me, all right? And it shouldn't work on you. So essentially, it shouldn't matter whether Kanye is a psyop or not. So let's get back on with this analysis, though. Here is the meat and bones of what I want to talk about with the Kanye phenomenon. Let's not look at the man so much as what he's doing, the methods of what he's doing, and the phenomenon. He's creating a huge amount of social and political flux in the modern world, right? And this is really interesting because modern liberal culture is this kind of really stupid garbage culture, and for all the wrong reasons. Entertainers and pop stars and movie stars, all these kind of people, the general public gives them far too much importance and far too much weight. And I don't, as a nationalist, I don't need to explain this to you guys. You guys all know, the brain dead celebrity, and they're always spouting their opinions on television, on social media, everywhere, and then all the masses, the liberal masses, all sit around discussing what this entertainer has just said. And 99% of the time, these entertainers, their opinions, their worldview is totally useless. Why would you even care what these people think? Why would you care what they're saying? So. But essentially, all of a sudden, everybody's caring about what Kanye's saying, but for different reasons, right? The reasons is because he's now a far-right shock jock, and he's just done this himself. He's come out of nowhere like a madman, and essentially he's doing a really good job. And he's using his power as a celebrity. He's using the weight of his celebrity status to add a lot of extra weight to the chaos that he's causing in the world. And just from my view that I can see now, the mainstream system in general, overall, just isn't quite sure of how to deal with this guy. In fact, most people, it doesn't matter whether you're black, you're white, you're Jewish, you're whatever, right? The fact that a very famous black man is now carrying on like this this is what's causing everybody to suddenly pay a lot of attention and to all suddenly be discussing this issue. So, and Kanye's well aware of this. He's quite an intelligent guy. Okay, now he's not intelligent in a learned fashion, as in he's not a mathematician or a historian. But from all the interviews I've seen, what his intelligence is basically he's very quick on his feet with his thinking. He's basically got a street smart intelligence. That's the area of Kanye's intelligence, and look, he's actually really good. Street smart intelligence in the modern urban world is a very, very important intelligence skill to have, right? I'm a guy who has a pretty good street smart intelligence. I'm not the smartest at various other subjects, but when it comes to street smart, I'm definitely one of the more street smart people that I know. And street smart intelligence is something that's missing from the majority of liberal people that I know. They're just not wise to the hustle, right? Kanye he's wise to the hustle. He knows how to use the hustle. He is using the hustle at this point in time, and he's using it to his own benefit, to his own advantage, really well. And this far right shock jock shtick that he's pushing now, essentially, and let me sum this up. This is Kanye's street smart intelligence is genuine, because let me explain this. In the past, we've had various pop stars and entertainers, and they've had periods in their career where they pretend that suddenly they're a rebel and that they're fighting the system, and that they're this outsider, and that they're doing this outside agitation. So you had various artists in the past, such as Madonna and Bono from U2, and they went through a phase where they were pretending. In fact, with these artists, it just was a psyop, right? They just did a psyop where they pretended they were fighting the system, and that they were this outsider rebel. And even back in the 90s, when these mainstream artists, Bono and Madonna especially, were pretending they were rebelling, even when I was a liberal, I could just see through this straight away. Madonna and Bono have no street smarts about them at all. They couldn't think on their feet in mainstream interviews. They just come across as fake, pretentious. This is completely different with Kanye. People are putting him on the spot during interviews. He can think on his feet, and he's doing something I've not seen any entertainer do since the days of Johnny Rotten from the Sex Pistols, right? What Kanye is doing is he's suddenly jumped up on the scene, and he's turned himself out of nowhere. He's suddenly become a belligerent contrarian outsider artist par excellence. Okay, I'll say that again. He's become a belligerent contrarian outsider artist par excellence. Now, as I said at the start of this video, I don't like hip hop, I don't like rap, I don't think there's a great amount of skill in those music forms, and I'm saying that as a musician. So I don't respect Kanye for his ability to rap, but I do actually respect his current ability as to present himself at all times in public as a belligerent contrarian. He's doing an excellent job. He actually is a consummate artist at what he's doing at this point in time. And the fact that he's causing such massive waves, he's causing so much chaos across various global communities, confirms what I'm saying here. Now, this is no small thing. We should be watching Kanye, we European nationalists, and learning a lesson or two from him, because this is something we can do. White people can do this as well. Now, getting back to my example of Johnny Rotten, Johnny Rotten, back in the 1970s, when he was with the Sex Pistols, he was the first rock star in history to suddenly just burst on the scenes. And essentially Johnny Rotten couldn't sing to save his life, and even Johnny Rotten admits this. But where his artistry was he was a belligerent contrarian, and he was a consummate artist at being the belligerent contrarian at all times in public, right? And essentially he was doing he performed a similar function that Kanye is performing now. So I don't know, man. Did Kanye at some point analyze what Johnny Rotten was doing and decide to do it himself? We'll probably never know, but Johnny Rotten actually set the template back in the 1970s for this shtick that Kanye is pulling off now. So Johnny Rotten came on the scene, and he had a lot of personal grievances, and Johnny Rotten talked about this in a lot of interviews. He wrote about it in his autobiography. I read his autobiography, and essentially the thing that made John's belligerent contrarian stance very, very powerful was he had a genuine chip on his shoulder. He was motivated by a very deep personal animus. John didn't like the modern liberal system, and it was kind of very strange because essentially John, as a punk, he was a nihilistic liberal, or essentially, really, if you get to know him quite well, he was a nihilistic libertarian. So back in the 1970s, John was essentially he opposed liberalism because it was fake, it was plastic, it was too well ordered, it was phony. He hated hippies. He thought they were pretentious, stupid, and dumb. And essentially, he had a personal grievance with the entire hippie liberal establishment of the 1970s, and he responded with this belligerent, contrarian desire to essentially cause this nihilistic destruction and chaos in liberal society. He wanted to offend every liberal. He wanted to tear the fake plastic liberal values up from by their roots. But when you get to know John, essentially he's a liberal himself. He's a working class yobbo, right? That's his core identity, and he just wanted for liberalism to have a more pithy working class foundation, the kind of foundation that he had in himself. So the last time the last time we had a genuine rock star who was the belligerent contrarian outsider causing the level of chaos that Kanye was doing, it essentially was a nihilistic libertarian guy, Johnny Rotten. Okay, so that was 40 years ago. Now, if you look at Johnny Rotten back then, the reason he was able to get so much traction at that point in history with his belligerent shtick in public was because the things he was saying and the way he was behaving, it struck a chord with a very large, significant sector of the population. Right, this is important, and Johnny Rotten knew this. He knew he was playing to a crowd that was receptive to his ideas and to his behaviour. Okay, so when he got essentially a lot of support and feedback from the public, he was able to continue his contrarian behaviour and actually cause far more havoc. Because he was hitting a popular public chord. There was a lot of working class yobbos back in the 70s who they'd never got on board with the socialist hippie values that were the major social force at the time, right? The working class yobbos found all the peace and love and universal tolerance and acceptance to be just bourgeois and pathetic. And the working classes, most of them had no time for this nonsense, right? And essentially, Johnny Rotten, with his belligerent behaviour, was able to give a voice to the dispossessed working classes, essentially. So this is a very significant thing, because fast forward to now, and for the last 10 or 15 years here in the West, we've had a growing segment of the population that are essentially they're far right, and they're in the same position that the working class yobbos were back in the 70s. The far right is a disenfranchised group with very little voice. And just like Johnny Rotten was intelligent enough and street smart enough to read the mood of his time and to be able to become the voice of a large demographic of disenfranchised people, Kanye is doing the same thing now. So this is no small thing. This is actually a very important thing. And this is a rare artistic gift to have. And as I said, even if Kanye is doing this as a psyop, which is possible, but to a large degree, I think Kanye is motivated by a personal animus. He's talked about this in a number of interviews. Apparently, he's not able to see his children. Apparently, he was hospitalized against his will because they said he was mentally ill. Apparently, according to his own testimony, he was fed up with his Jewish bosses in the record business, and from what I can see, Kanye is smart enough that, and he's definitely a street smart guy, as I said. He's got the same kind of street smarts as Johnny Rotten had. He's smart enough to have picked up on the fact that there's a growing large minority of people here in the West who are very sympathetic to far right politics, and just like Johnny Rotten, Kanye seems to have used the motivation of a massive chip on his shoulder against the system that he works for, and he's combined that with speaking out and agitating on far right subjects that are taboo, that we're not allowed to talk about, and he's stirring up huge amounts of the population. So essentially, whether or not he's he's a contrarian agitator par excellence. I have never seen, not since the days of the Sex Pistols, I've never seen another pop star with the street smart abilities to be able to turn their life into the life of an agitator artist, and then essentially cause so many political and social ripples across such a huge amount of the globe. Right, and this is exactly what Johnny Rotten did with the Sex Pistols. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. 40 years ago, Johnny Rotten with the Sex Pistols was actually just agitating for he was a nihilist, but he wanted liberalism to get smashed down to a large degree, but he just wanted liberalism to be taken down a level or two, and to be reconstructed in a slightly different form of liberalism. So Johnny Rotten he wasn't entirely against liberalism as much as he claimed he was. He just sort of wanted to tear it down a bit and then rebuild a new type of liberalism that was more focused on working class yobbos like himself. Okay, so that was 40 years ago. Now, Kanye, he's the first major artist we have that's now agitating for a far right takeover. This is pretty funny, right? Now, all throughout the past, we've had more minor artists, people such as Johnny Rebel, artists such as Rebel Sun, who else? We've got a whole range. Artists such as Foundering and Paddy Tarleton. These have been fairly small artists who have been agitating on the far right. Okay, but because they're small cult artists and they're confined to the far right, essentially. The liberal system confines these people and their views to the far right. But because of these factors, these smaller artists haven't been able to cause very much agitation outside of their general sphere. You know, as in some ways, you know, I'm a fairly unknown artist, and I try to agitate on behalf of the far right, and I've had some success, but nothing of the global scope and the global nature that Kanye has been able to do. So this is a very interesting phenomenon. Both Johnny Rotten and Kanye were aware that they have an international audience, and they made a conscious decision, the pair of them, in their own way, that because they had the status of international artists, that they were going to use this status as a force of complete agitation and chaos against the liberal system. All right, both of them are driven by an animus against the liberal system, and this is where it gets interesting, because when somebody does have an artistic streak in their soul, right, and they have a personal animus that's very deep and very strong, it's going to come out in their art, it's going to come out in their persona, it's going to come out in the way that they present themselves to the world. So essentially, both Kanye and Johnny Rotten basically street artists par excellence when it comes to the field of contrarian outsider artist. It's they're able to use the artistic streak within their own personas to actually really play off the social systems that are surrounding them, and they're able to play up to various stereotypes, and they're able to play down. They're very conscious of what they're doing. So this is something that white nationalists, we really need to look into. We should look at artists such as Kanye and Johnny Rotten and look at the social and political effects that these people have had, because Johnny Rotten himself, he wasn't just the social effect of being a punk. He actually managed to annoy the royal family. He actually managed to give the system of the time a real headache. In his own book, he outlines that he was continually being arrested in the 1970s in England. The police basically had been told by the powers that be to harass him and shut him down. And if we go forward and look at Kanye, it seems to be the same thing is happening to him. Once again, I'll say it could be a psyop, but to a large degree it doesn't matter, because I'm looking at this more from the perspective of what he's doing and the effect it's having, and the strategies that he's using, and how he's able to pull this off. This is something that other people can replicate. Right? He's able to cause a lot of chaos and destabilization to the social and political systems that we're surrounded by at this point in time. So this is something worthy of consideration. If you're a European nationalist and you're interested in social and political strategies and artistic strategies and thinking outside the box, at this point in time, Kanye is the man to be looking at and taking some lessons from. It doesn't matter whether you like the guy or not. It doesn't matter whether you like black people or not. Just think about the perspective I'm looking at Kanye here, and apply your own conclusions. Now, in closing, I'm going to say here, and this is another very important thing. So, let's say that Kanye is a psyop. Let's say he's got a certain assignment to lead white nationalists astray, whatever. And it's a very elaborate psyop, and he's going to string the white nationalists along, and they'll all follow him, and then he'll do a bait and switch, or he'll do something that betrays the white nationalists, whatever. It's I don't really care, because I don't follow people in that way. But here's the important thing, right? What Kanye has done is he's stirred up a lot of conversations, right? He's basically, what Kanye has done is he's stirred up controversy and conversations, but Kanye is very street smart, and he takes control of the narrative. Now, just the same as Johnny Rotten, both of them, Kanye and Johnny Rotten, get portrayed by the mainstream as being insane, and this is partly correct. They were both slightly unreasonable, slightly insane people, right? But that's not the important point, right? Johnny Rotten and Kanye were both masters. It didn't matter whether the system labelled them crazy or insane or hateful or bigoted. They always ended up taking control of the narrative. They never let their power be taken from them by the liberal system. Right? Whenever liberal interviewers began speaking down to them, or saying that they were bigots, or using their general liberal tactics to make them look like bad people, Kanye and John were both able to come straight back on the front foot, and not just defend themselves in public, but they were able to make themselves look good, and they were able to make the interviewer look bad. Right, this is a very important skill to have. This is one of those street smart types of intelligence that's not too many people have this. Right, liberalism beats this out of most people. Right, if you have street smart intelligence where you're always able to, under whatever situation, to control the narrative. If you always have a really good answer, and you have a really good stance in public, and you come off always looking like you're in control of the situation, it doesn't matter whether you're slightly crazy or whether you're belligerent or whatever. If you have a mastery of the situation, a large segment of the public are going to end up at least being somewhat on your side. They're going to have some level of support or respect for you. And this is very important. This is something that European nationalists actually need to learn. We need to try to get ourselves out of our self-imposed ghettos. We tend to be very, very cliquey. Nearly all European nationalists I know, because we're a beaten down minority, we've tended to form these very small cliques, and there's not very many of us who actually just come straight out in public in the way that Kanye is, and just totally on the front foot, and totally owning the narrative no matter what gets thrown at us. So these are the important takeaways of the Kanye debacle. He is a debacle. Kanye knows this. He's causing a debacle. He's causing chaos, and he's profiting from this. And good on him. Whether he's black, white, or whatever, man, he's one of the very, very few celebrities I've seen who actually has, to some degree, who has stepped outside the system a little bit, at least, and he's worked out how to control the narrative so that he himself can get what he wants from the situation. So this is something that white nationalists need